Hello everyone. In the comments to one of my previous videos, Felipe Robert wondered what SLS would be capable of with 4 boosters instead of 2, and so here we are, because this is something I have not done to SLS, and I guess I'm dedicated to doing pretty much everything possible to SLS. This is not a thing that is strictly speaking possible, because of course the core has a specific amount of load that it can deal with as far as boosters on the side of it are concerned, and this would definitely be too much, but we'll set that part aside for now. It would need to be strengthened, and that would suck, and that's how it is, but here we are. So, I mean, it probably could deal with a little bit more than it does, because they had advanced boosters in mind, but not like this. Not like this. So, we will see. Let's see what it's capable of to the moon. That's the most interesting thing, because it's designed for the moon. We've got Block 1B here, because I don't know what the official line for the Centaur 5 version is, but we know Block 1B, the official line, was like 37 tons to the moon. What we have here is 57 tons to the moon, so it would easily outclass Saturn V, which was 45 tons, but then it should, because we've got 4,200 tons as opposed to just 3,000 tons with Saturn V. So there's still a lighter rocket than the Starship Super Heavy. We can certainly say that on a single launch it will outclass Starship Super Heavy as well, but, you know, reusability, etc., etc. So anyway, let's launch it and see what happens. I'm just gonna leave it in the hands of Ascent Guidance, and then I'm going to redesign the body so that it makes better use of the boosters potentially, though, you know, looking at the thrust weight ratio, it doesn't look like it's that bad right now, to be honest. We've got just the 4 engines down there, still a thrust weight ratio of 1 by the end, because it expends the same amount of fuel in the same time in the core. It just gets further along because of the boosters. Anyway, let's see what happens. Oh, I think I might have left it a little bit too low in there. It hasn't exploded yet, though. It is wobbling a lot. It's threatening to explode, I can tell. Well, let's try. So those are the settings. I'll just let it be. Here we go. Well, a little bit of a tip there, but I guess we're okay. So we need to have 3,200 meters per second remaining once we make orbit. Thrust weight ratio is much more than advertised by MechGem because it doesn't read the SRBs properly. This is straight up the Artemis construction kit ones. That's the fairings from Artemis construction kit. We were wiggling at the start, so the clock is wrong there. Okay, those can go. Looking good. Actually, we could probably load up a little bit more. But then again, the Block 1B, the EUS stage, might need to take some extra Delta V to make orbit, so... But it's reading that we have 300 extra right now. Off go the fairings. Now we have even more. But I do have to emphasize, the boosters are already the biggest, baddest boosters that have ever been actually used in flight. So doubling them up is a non-trivial thing. And then there's the option of doubling the Bola boosters, the ones that are supposed to be replacing the RSRM5s. Alright, staging and our 4 RL10s. We should easily make it, even though it's a 21-minute stage here. And we should make it with 400 to spare over the 3,200 that we need for translunar injection. Which means that if it could actually keep its fuel and do an ignition after 3 to 4 days, then it could actually do a chunk of capture as well. But I don't think EUS was intended to do that, so we'll set that aside. Alright, no problems. And we have 3,626 or 400 meters per second over what we need to go to the moon. So let's see what extra that gets us. And then I'll turn to hopefully a rocket that's a little bit better if we add a few things. But that seems pretty good already. I mean, we get 20 tons more over to the moon, which is not trivial. So, let's say we are willing to knock the delta V down by 300. Basically that much. So, 63.7, call it 64 because we could do up to 400. So, at 400, it's just a few more meters per second there. And yeah. In theory, that would be possible right there. So that's 64 tons. What about a version that has a larger core? So instead of doing an 8-meter core, 8.4 meter core, we're going to go all the way up to 10 meters, both on the upper stage and the first stage. So here we have the SLS 9C. So I had introduced the SLS 9, which is like a Falcon 9 with 9 of these engines at the bottom. That probably isn't even necessary. Would you mind if I cut that down to like 7? Then it's gonna be like New Glenn. So it's a New Glenn version. But we would like a thrust weight ratio of 1 there. It was too little. I mean, it was too much with 9, now it's too little with 7. We need 8. But I would like to keep the center engine there. No, 1.01 is probably a lie. But we could cut down the size of the main tank here. I've used a procedural tank, of course. But how much do we have up here? No, it's 64 tons again. Well, it's got to be able to carry more than that, right? Right? You would think. Now, we've got 4 BE3Us instead of RL10s up here. So, it's still a possible stage. After all, with New Glenn, Blue Origin is planning to make a version with 4 BE3Us. It wouldn't be this shape. It wouldn't be 10 meters in diameter. So, we could... well, maybe I should make it 7 meters in diameter. But then, that limits what we can put up there. But... Let me just not mess with it for now. But you could think of it as that version as well. Now, we were able to do 12,300 with the other one, though we're starting off with less thrust weight ratio somehow. So maybe we can boost this up a little bit. Let's say 80 tons. Can we do 80 tons to the moon, mind you? Got a small... I should make the fairing larger. Let's make this thinner and longer. And since I've reduced the engine count down there, I'm going to reduce the size of the stage a little bit. Well, that should be alright. It's still right around the burn time of the engines. That's 8 minutes and 15 seconds right there. About the same mass as Starship Super Heavy now. 1.02 looks bad, but we'll have to see what it actually is, because again, it's probably not telling us the truth. Alright, 80 tons to the moon. Can it do it, or do we have to cut that down? SLS 9C. Okay, it's a little bit high up, especially compared to the now smallish tower. But engage. That might be a bit tight. Thrust weight ratio exceedingly moderate. We just had a little bit of an issue. For some reason the fairing did not stay linked to the payload adapter, but it's not falling off or anything. Well, it looks certain to be falling short, but we'll just see how much it falls short by and adjust the payload based on that. Okay, off go the boosters. Looks like we're falling about 500 to 600 short. Alright, let's try fairing separation. Oh, that's the busted one down there. Looking how much it's keeping its pitch up, maybe I should put 9 on there, or reduce this further. Alright, upper stage with the 4 BE-3Us. We still need about 1,900 to make orbit, and still looking like we're falling about 600 short. We do have this fairing hanging out though. Don't know how it reads that really. Okay. And that's that. So, alright, let's see what that gets us. 600 more is a lot to ask. We're at 80 tons. But maybe the additional thrust weight ratio would help. It sure seems like it doesn't do any good making the rocket bigger, does it? Isn't that the case? It sure seems that way. I mean, we go all the way back to 64 tons. And it's not like we got 600 extra. But probably once you work out the additional thrust weight ratio benefit, it's fine. Now, it's possible we could extend the upper stage a bit more. But it's having a paradoxical effect there. Where if we extend the upper stage more, it is getting quite a lot of delta V right now. But if we do, our delta V actually seems to go down. We do have the proper tanks. We've got the engines. But it is true that these engines, the BE-3Us at 445 seconds of ISP, are worse than the RS-25s with 452 seconds of ISP. I don't know if that's enough to make the whole delta V go down, but maybe. So, But we can certainly make this stage bigger. We don't need it to have such a high thrust weight ratio, but we do then overburden what's going on down below, and our delta V actually goes down according to this measure. So that's a curious situation. So is SLS already just perfect, and maybe we should just slap 2 extra boosters on it? Well, certainly they wanted to do a booster upgrade, right? This isn't a new idea. They wanted to have the Bolo boosters. Better boosters would certainly help, is the basic message. And more engines. People keep talking about, oh, we need RS-68s down there, we need 6 engines. As far as I can tell, it's all useless. Because when the boosters go off, the SLS already has a thrust weight ratio of 1. Now, if you make the core bigger, we see that that doesn't help anyway either. So, especially if you put a J2X equivalent engine up there, which we have with the BE-3Us. The J2X had 448 seconds of ISP, not too much better than this, and the J2X was heavier for the amount of thrust, so it had a lower thrust weight ratio. So what do we end up with, right? If you go back to the Constellation style, J2X on top, plus extra thrust on the bottom, and God forbid the RS-68s, which are much less efficient than the RS-25s, you get better thrust-weight ratio, but do you really need it? It just makes the vehicle more stressed, which means that it's going to have to be strengthened more, which means it's going to have a heavier dry mass, which of course it's going to need with the 4 boosters anyway, but even more than that. So yeah, maybe SLS isn't so bad after all. I think there's a lot of constellation worship that goes on, even though constellation was just basically a bunch of neat little pictures. I do get frustrated with that. Anyway, so this has been an investigation of the 4 booster option, which is certainly beneficial. We could do with more thrust if it meant that we didn't have to make the core any heavier, but we would probably have to make the core heavier, and that's going to be the problem. But anyway, I'll leave it here for now. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.